The clock strikes exactly 0710 local time in the Persian Gulf. In an instant, a massive Tomahawk cruise missile violently erupts from the armored deck of the USS Spruance, its solid rocket booster screaming as it punches into the morning sky and immediately banks toward the sovereign coastline of Iran. Within seconds, the initial booster falls away, and a highly advanced turbofan engine rapidly spools to life. The Tomahawk drops aggressively to just 50 feet above the waterline, skimming the waves to evade radar detection. 4 seconds later, the next vertical launch cell fires. Then the next, the largest, most complex American military operation since the massive 2003 invasion of Iraq has just officially started. Within just 90 seconds, 8 highly destructive missiles are gone from the Spruance. 300 miles to the northwest, 2 other massive destroyers are simultaneously running the exact same lethal drill. 25 Tomahawks are now actively racing along the wavetops on highly classified routes, specifically designed to exploit every single known gap in the enemy's radar coverage. The total flight time to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval bases situated on Iran's southern coast is exactly 40 minutes. Right now, absolutely nobody in Iran has any idea they are coming. But the curiosity you should have right now isn't just about the explosive power of these missiles. It is about the absolute financial dominance and the brutal, calculated economics of modern warfare. How does the United States military completely bankrupt an enemy's air defense grid before the real bombs even drop? Subscribe to Tax Hack Pro. We analyze the intersection of massive government spending, military logistics, and the geopolitical economics that shape your taxes and your wealth. Hit that subscribe button right now so you can understand the sheer, terrifying cost of the next global conflict. Tomahawk missiles are incredibly patient and methodically slow. Cruising at roughly 550 miles per hour across open water means 40 agonizing minutes of physical exposure. Everything right now depends entirely on what secretly crossed the Iranian border ahead of them. Already deep inside heavily defended Iranian airspace, a massive swarm of specialized Lucas drones is actively doing something that no American weapon system has ever successfully done before. An Iranian air defense operator sitting at a highly advanced battery suddenly watches a dozen slow-moving, unidentified contacts materialize out of nowhere on his scope. He cannot physically tell which ones are carrying 40-pound explosive warheads directly aimed at his fragile radar antenna and which ones are just electronic noise. Panicking under the pressure, he fires. The massive surface-to-air interceptor violently streaks off the launch rail. That single interceptor missile costs the Iranian government well over $1 million. It aggressively tracks a small drone, closes the distance at 3 times the speed of sound, and violently turns it into falling confetti. But it was not a Tomahawk cruise missile. What you just saw blow up was a highly specialized, low-cost Lucas drone, actively reverse-engineered from captured Iranian drones. The massive financial catch is that they only cost the United States $35,000 to produce. The Iranian operator panics and fires again, burning another $1 million in taxpayer funds. This is the brutal, unforgiving reality of cost-exchange warfare operating at a massive industrial scale. Every single $1 million interceptor that helplessly chases a cheap drone is one fewer interceptor sitting in the magazine when the actual wave of 25 highly destructive Tomahawk cruise missiles suddenly shows up in exactly 30 minutes. But the Iranian air defense commanders are about to discover something absolutely terrifying. What completely crossed the Iraqi border next wasn't another $35,000 decoy drone. 12 heavily armed F-15I Ram strike fighters had been steadily climbing east through sovereign Iraqi airspace, tightly tucked behind an invisible, electronic screen provided by a flight of F-35 stealth fighters running completely silent. At exactly 0805 local time, the massive strike formation reaches its designated launch altitude high over western Iraq. The pilot firmly squeezes the release button. 2,500 pounds of advanced weaponry instantly drop away. The Rampage supersonic missile aggressively punches straight through the sound barrier, trailing a blinding white exhaust plume as it climbs away on a massive ballistic arc directly toward Tehran. 11 more F-15s cleanly release their weapons within seconds of each other. A subsonic Tomahawk cruise missile, fired from Iraq, absolutely needs 45 minutes of flight time to physically reach Tehran. These supersonic Rampage weapons only need a few minutes. That massive discrepancy in time is the entire ball game. 45 minutes gives the Iranian radar operators crucial time to detect, actively track, and fire their interceptors. A few minutes only gives them enough time to watch the devastating impact live on the local news. At exactly 0810, absolutely everything arrives at once. The massive supersonic standoff weapons hit the capital first. The highly fortified office of the Supreme Leader takes multiple, devastating direct hits. Within minutes of the initial impacts, the stealthy F-35s officially cross the border, their internal weapons bays fully loaded with heavy small-diameter bombs. This is exactly where the F-35's highly classified sensor fusion technology absolutely earns every single dollar of its massive price tag. The American pilot does not have to frantically flip between confusing radar screens. The jet's massive internal computers perfectly merge absolutely everything into one perfectly clean tactical picture, projected directly onto his helmet visor. He smoothly rolls the F-35 onto its back at exactly 25,000 feet and cleanly releases a bomb. The weapon punches straight through the heavily reinforced Ministry of Defense roof and violently detonates deep inside the third floor. Across the sprawling city of Tehran, the highly destructive pattern violently repeats itself, aggressively severing the entire administrative nervous system, connecting Iran's top military leaders to its combat units in the field. But every single minute the F-35s spend loitering over Tehran, their overall physical exposure aggressively grows. Deep from the rugged mountains of western Iran, the regime's most capable air defense system is silently tracking them. If you are absolutely fascinated by the incredible intersection of modern military technology, billion-dollar defense budgets, and global economics, you need to subscribe to Tax Hack Pro. Hit subscribe now to stay ahead of the massive financial shockwaves. 700 miles directly south of the thick smoke rising over Tehran, the slow-moving Tomahawk cruise missiles finally reach the Iranian coastline. The primary command building of the massive Azali naval base instantly folds entirely inward. Exactly 4 minutes later, a massive F-15E Strike Eagle rolls in aggressively from the north. The weapons officer designates a heavily hardened concrete shelter, housing Iran's highly dangerous fast attack boats. A massive 2,000-pound bomb effortlessly punches straight through the thick concrete arch and violently detonates directly inside. Iran spent 40 years loudly threatening to physically mine the Strait of Hormuz and choke off the global economy. The specific boats that were supposed to execute that threat are currently burning intensely under a collapsed roof. 500 miles to the east, F/Aminus-18 Super Hornets from the USS Abraham Lincoln launched to target Chabahar, Iran's only deepwater port. The military logic is brutal and simple. If you physically cannot fuel a submarine, repair a submarine, or safely load it with heavy naval mines, it might as well just be a highly expensive lawn ornament. Highly precise small-diameter bombs eliminate the dangerous anti-ship missile batteries on the coastal bluff. But 500 miles to the north, the specific weapon system Iran was heavily counting on finally makes a fatal mistake. A domestically built mobile phased array radar deep in the Kermanshah Mountains actively switches to fire control mode to target the stealth fighters. The exact millisecond the operator transmits that massive amount of energy, he is completely finished. An EA-18G Growler instantly floods his tracking frequency with raw electronic power, blinding the system. From a Super Hornet quietly orbiting 40 miles away, an incredibly fast anti-radiation missile drops cleanly off the pylon. The entire engagement takes less than 90 seconds. Israel and the United States completely destroyed the highly touted replacement radar before it could even launch a single interceptor. That highly specific sequence completely rewrites the rest of the day. 12 highly advanced F-22 Raptors officially get the call to push deep into Iranian airspace. The Raptors aren't here today to shoot down aging fighter jets. They are here to silently listen. The F-22's highly classified electronic warfare sweep quietly and efficiently catalogs every single electronic emission happening on the ground far below. A mobile SAM battery or a command post desperately communicating is instantly geolocated and forwarded to heavily armed strike eagles. Down on the ground in western Iran, the absolute most desperate, high-stakes contest of the entire day is violently playing out. 30 heavily loaded F-15s are aggressively hunting transporter Raptor launchers, the massive military trucks that fire ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israeli cities. The military math here is completely brutal. A highly trained missile crew can set up and violently launch in well under 30 minutes. The highly trained weapons officer sitting on the orbiting F-15 has the targeting crosshairs perfectly centered directly on a launcher rail, but he actively and deliberately holds his fire. He actively needs the volatile fuel lines to be fully connected, He absolutely needs everything in one highly explosive place. 10 agonizing seconds, 15 seconds. The ground crew finally steps back. He firmly pickles. The highly advanced glide bomb violently detonates exactly at the junction of the heavy launcher rail. 3 massive tons of highly volatile liquid propellant violently ignite in a massive secondary fireball. The highly valuable truck is nothing but twisted, burning scrap metal. But military commanders know that some Iranian counterfire is absolutely going to get through the defense grid. The absolute only way to limit it is to aggressively destroy Iran's largest conventional weapons stockpile before it ever launches. With Iranian air defenses now functionally gone, the massive coalition scales up to absolute full kinetic capacity. Israel's massive next wave of 30 fighter jets fans out to aggressively target massive ballistic missile storage warehouses and heavily guarded drone depots. These warehouses are packed to the ceiling with one-way attack drones completely fueled, fully armed, and pre-programmed for Israeli cities and American military bases. Heavy JDAMs and highly precise bombs absolutely walk aggressively through depot after depot. In a matter of minutes, over 950 highly dangerous suicide drones are completely gone, turned to burning ash. Simultaneously, highly coordinated United States strikes actively hammer the remaining command and control infrastructure much deeper inland. They target deeply buried underground bunkers and essential fiber optic network nodes. The military targeting logic is incredibly brutal and simple. Aggressively sever the communications grid first, and the remaining enemy commanders absolutely cannot coordinate a unified defense. Iran's national internet access violently drops to exactly 4% of its normal capacity. However, in a brilliant psychological operation, a highly sophisticated, hacked Iranian Islamic prayer app is somehow still able to actively push a very simple, highly powerful message directly through to millions of terrified citizens' mobile phones across the country. The message simply reads, "Help has arrived. If you want to ensure your wealth survives the massive inflation and tax hikes that always follow global conflicts, make sure you subscribe to Tax Hack Pro. We will continue to audit the massive financial fallout of these military operations. Stay vigilant, protect your assets, and we will see you in the next deep dive financial audit."